The film begins with a CIA memo being typed on the screen, stating that a man named Arlington Stewart has recovered from severe burn wounds. He's now delivering unidentified units to a newly started Mars project. The story opens in 1976 with a married couple, Norma and Arthur, waking up at 5:45 as the doorbell rings. Norma goes downstairs and sees a black car drive off through the peephole. Upon opening the door, she finds a package on the doorstep. Arthur and Norma open the package at the table, revealing a black wooden box with a red button protected by a glass dome. It is locked with a key and a fancy note stating that a man named Mr. Stewart will come at 5 p.m. Since they don't know the man, the couple proceeds with breakfast, joined by their son Walter. Later, Norma sees Arthur drive away to get to NASA Langley Research Center. Arthur works in optics, specializing in designing cameras on the Viking Mars probe. While teaching literature at an elite private school discussing Sartre's version of hell, a student suddenly remarks on Norma's limp. Norma reluctantly removes her boots, where the student taunts her. She lets them see her disfigured foot with 4 missing toes. After class, Norma is called to the dean's office, informing her that the faculty discount for the tuition is canceled. The news leaves Norma speechless, but the dean's nose suddenly bleeds out, concerning her. The dean wipes off the blood like it's not a big deal and ends the meeting. Norma returns home, problematic, as she knows paying bills is gonna be tougher. Norma opens the door after someone rings the bell and is shocked to see an old man in his 70s wearing a hat with half his lower face missing. He introduces himself as Arlington Stewart. Unlike Norma's reaction, Arlington is remarkably composed as he makes an offer. Arlington unlocks the box and explains that someone in the world they don't know will die if she or Arthur pushes the button. They will receive $1 million in cash if they do so. Norma is astonished as she looks at the briefcase full of money before her. Even if she rejects the offer, Arlington hands her a $100 bill she gets to keep. Norma asks about his employers, but Arlington informs her that he must not share any information about them. He adds that Norma and Arthur must keep the offer's details private. Also, she only has 24 hours to decide. Whatever the decision is, he will return tomorrow at the same time to retrieve the button unit. If she refuses to accept, the box will be reprogrammed and the offer will be made to someone else. Meanwhile, Arthur's co-workers ask about Norma's limp, so he explains what happened. Norma's brother dropped a barbell on her foot, so she went to the hospital. The doctor left her foot on the x-ray machine for too long while attending to other patients. Her tissues were destroyed entirely by radiation. Norma's family sued the doctor and won $10,000. In return for his good deed, Arthur's boss, Norm, hands him the letter from the astronaut corps. They know Arthur has been waiting to get accepted to be one of the astronauts going to Mars. However, their smiles vanish as Arthur informs them that he has been rejected. Norm and other higher officials contact the astronaut corps regarding the letter. It turns out that Arthur failed the psychological exam. Arthur cannot accept this as he has aced the other exams. Arthur returns home, devastated, but Norma distracts him from work by telling her encounter with Arlington. Arthur doesn't believe that a man with half his face gone would offer such a thing, so Arthur tells Norma to prepare as they will be late for the play. Norma locks the button unit in the basement before leaving Walter with his babysitter Dana. After the play, Arthur and Norma consider other reasons Arlington would offer them the deal. However, none of the ideas make sense, and they return home still baffled. Arthur tinkers at home with the button unit as he is curious, only to find nothing inside. There is no transmission or audio, so he thinks Arlington will never know if they push the button. In bed, Norma cannot help but share how that $1 million money can help them accomplish more in their lives. The following day, a NASA employee rushes home after his wife informs him their daughter was taken. Later that day, after testing that the $100 bill is real, Arthur believes the offer might be real. Arthur asks Norma if she's prepared to be responsible for someone's death, even if they don't know who it is. However, Norma suddenly jerks forwards and pushes the button. As the button slightly rises, a 911 call is shown where someone has been shot. The police arrive at the address and find a woman shot through the heart and a little girl locked in the bathroom upstairs. That afternoon, Arlington returns and presents the couple with a briefcase of $1 million. Arlington confirms that someone died before taking the button unit and explains that the offer will be made to someone else. After that, Arlington leaves, but Arthur goes after him to return the money. He refuses to accept it as the button has been pushed. The couple watches him drive away, but Arthur remembers his license plate. Arthur immediately puts the briefcase in the safe as Walter arrives home from school. Meanwhile, at a police station, the officers report that the dead wife's husband, Jeffrey, is a rocket scientist working for NASA. Later that day, Arthur distracts Norma from the Arlington problem by gifting her a prosthetic foot he created, allowing her to walk without a limp. After that, they attend the rehearsal dinner for Norma's sister's wedding. Norma's dad hosts the rehearsal and instructs Arthur to select a present from the table. As Arthur goes to the front, he sees a waiter who turns out to be the student that humiliated Norma, holding up 2 fingers at him. Although confused, Arthur opens a box, revealing a photo of Arlington. Despite being disturbed, the couple pretends to be fine throughout the rehearsal. On the other hand, Dana hides her startledness when someone suddenly appears outside the window watching them. She asks Walter to take her to the basement and show her Arthur's collection. Walter explains that Arthur helped design the camera for the Viking project on Mars. While looking, Dana notices a picture of everyone who worked on the development of the camera, one of which is Arlington. At the rehearsal, Arthur asks Norma's dad, a police officer with an unfortunate name, to run Arlington's license plate for safety purposes. Arthur alibis that the car has been lurking around their house and wants to ensure his family's safety. Later, Norma's sister informs Arthur that the strange waiter he saw is Norma's student who humiliated her and made fun of her foot. At this time, Norma follows a waiter whose nose begins bleeding as he leads her to the phone where she receives a call. Norma wipes the blood, but the waiter abruptly leaves, looking startled. As Norma takes the phone, Arlington scolds her for allowing Arthur to contact the police. Arlington knows Arthur has spoken to Norma's father about his license plate. Norma reasons they don't want anyone to get hurt. However, Arlington rebuts that they shouldn't have pushed the button. Meanwhile, Arthur angrily approaches the student, who has been staring at him all day, and yells at him for making fun of Norma. After realizing that he has caused a scene, Arthur storms out of the party, with Norma following him to their car. As they enter, they see "No Exit" written in the frost on their windshield, the title of the SART place they went to. Upon returning home, Norma wakes up Dana before asking Arthur to take her to the hotel she's staying at. While on the road, Dana acts strangely, asking weird questions such as, "What's pushing your buttons?" and comments like, "Look into the light," creeping out Arthur. Arthur asks about the light she's referring to when Dana suddenly nosebleeds before passing out. Arthur attempts to wake her when he accidentally finds her driver's license. The license reveals that her real name is Sarah, and she's from Boston. Arthur arrives at Dana's hotel, where she suddenly jerks up and worriedly tells him to look in the mirror to save himself. Dana then rushes inside the hotel, where every other door she passes opens and a startled-looking person stares down at her. She walks in a hurry to her room, where she has a large map and pictures of Norma, Arthur, and Walter. Arthur returns home and asks Norma where she met Dana. Norma explains they met on a school field trip and she was from Richmond. However, Arthur shows her Dana's driver's license, confusing them. Norma shares the phone call with Arlington, who informed her he has many employees. Late that night, Arthur still cannot sleep, so he goes downstairs to his collection. Arthur's shocked as he finds Arlington's picture in an old photograph of everyone who worked in the development of the camera. The following day, Norma receives another call from Arlington, informing her that he knows Arthur's whereabouts. Norma wants to meet him in person, but Arlington claims he's looking at her. Norma sees a man, his mouth agape, in her backyard looking at her. Meanwhile, NASA Director Martin talks to Arthur's bosses, informing them NASA employees will be involved in NSA activities that cannot be disclosed. On the other hand, Arthur stops by the police station. Norma's father informs him that Arlington's car belongs to the NSA. He also informs Arthur about the Jeffrey shooting. Jeffrey works at Langley, and his wife died at 4:45 p.m. That's precisely the time Norma pushed the button. Norma's father is baffled why Arthur wants the information, but Arthur wants to go to the crime scene. Meanwhile, a panicked woman approaches Norma at a supermarket with her mom. She tells her that the NSA is letting him do the experiment, and NASA can't do anything about it. The test subjects are under 40 and happily married with a kid. She then hands Norma a piece of paper with a particular call number and instructs her to go to Richmond Library. She also advises Norma not to trust anyone, even her husband, before passing out with a nosebleed. Following that, the paramedics arrive to escort the woman out of the supermarket. Norma and her mom are confused about the encounter as they don't know the woman. Upon arriving at the crime scene, Arthur finds pictures of Arlington, a Polaroid of a human resource book, and a library call number. Arthur steals the Polaroid. Later that day, Norma goes to the Richmond Library to look for the call number. However, she accidentally finds Arthur just a few walks away, searching for something. Remembering the woman's advice, she avoids him and finds the call number containing a film reel. At that time, Arthur finds the call number on the Polaroid, a book entitled The Lightning. Arthur finds a cut newspaper article about a NASA employee struck by lightning. He goes out to the hallway after finding the book, only to be followed by a crowd of people with startled looks. He tries to run away, but finds himself in a large hall with more strange-looking people. He also finds a woman who tells him the library is exclusive to employees. Arthur realizes that she is Arlington's wife, Clemeny. She tells Arthur to follow her into her room. She presents him with 3 gateways made of hovering water. Clemeny claims Arlington is testing them and asks Arthur to choose one gateway carefully. Only one will lead to salvation, while the other 2 are on the path to eternal damnation, which he will face if he refuses. He must make a decision with the employees watching him. Remembering the student holding 2 fingers at him, Arthur chooses the second gateway. He touches the water with his forefinger when it suddenly devours him. The next thing he knows, he's swirling through whiteness. After watching the film reel showing Arlington before his disfigurement, Norma is led by 2 hollow-looking women to Arlington. Arlington shares that he was struck with lightning, leaving the lower of his face gone. However, he now communicates with those that control the lightning. He asks her about her feelings when they first met, and she replies that she felt love. What? Her response surprises him, so Norma explains that her disfigurement has caused her pain for decades. She can't imagine how excruciating it is to magnify and project onto her face that cannot be easily hidden. From that moment, Norma realized that she never has to feel sorry for herself again because other people like Arlington have it worse. Arlington doesn't know how to respond to her sincerity and asks her to hold his hand. However, Norma loses consciousness after holding his hand. Norma wakes up in the bedroom with Arthur suspended above her in hovering water. She moves away just in time as Arthur falls out of the water, which flows down the stairs. Although confused, they clean up the mess while Walter demands an explanation of what is happening. However, they don't give him an answer. Meanwhile, Martin informs Norm that Arlington was struck by lightning at the platform following the Viking project on Mars. He died shortly after being admitted, but woke up laughing in the morgue freezer. He was transferred to a high-security military hospital. They also discovered that Arlington possesses extraordinary capabilities, such as healing 10 times faster than average. His face just takes longer. Norma and Arthur attempt to forget the strange events at the wedding, but Arthur cannot help but share what he saw in the light. It's an indescribable place with a warm embrace. Shortly after, Arthur goes outside as he has trouble breathing. However, Arthur is cornered by Jeffrey, who takes him out of the party with a gun. Shortly after, Walter goes outside to look for his dad, and seconds later, Norma begins looking for him. Norma finds Walter at the bridge where two men kidnap him. While on the road, Jeffrey gives Arthur the same book he found at the crime scene. Jeffrey reveals that whatever struck Arlington stayed in him and now controls the employees, referring to the people with their nose bleeding. It embedded itself in Langley as the center contains the military, FBI, NASA, and CIA employees that will be helpful to the test it is conducting. Jeffrey's daughter has been kidnapped, just like Walter. He discovers that these kids are taken to the same motel where Dana stays, a transport harbored site. They use the swimming pool as a gateway. His wife died because he had to choose between her and their daughter. They are then stopped by a man in a Santa Claus outfit ringing a bell. As they try to figure out what is happening, a large truck suddenly appears from the side and crashes into them. The next scene shows Arthur emerging from the NASA warehouse, surrounded by the military. As he is taken by the soldiers, Norm tells him that everything that will happen next will have significant ramifications. Arthur and Norma return home to find Arlington in their kitchen. He informs them that Walter is now blind and deaf, leaving them two options. They can live with their deaf and blind son with the money he gave them, or Arthur can shoot his wife in the heart. If he does so, Walter's senses will return, while the money will be put in a bank until his 18th birthday. Arthur takes the gun to shoot Arlington, but he informs them that Walter will be condemned to a life of agony if he dies. After that, he tells them their son is in the upstairs bathroom before leaving. The couple rushes to the bathroom to help their son, only to realize that it is locked and Walter cannot hear them, leaving them no other option. Norma takes her husband downstairs and expresses her love for the last time. They hug and kiss after finishing their goodbyes before Arthur strikes her heart with a bullet. Simultaneously, another couple sits on the table with a button unit. They are contemplating when the woman suddenly pushes the button. Their neighbors call the police, who soon arrive as Arthur runs upstairs to save his son, who has earned his sight and hearing back. That scene implies that the process will go on. An unhuman being living inside Arlington is testing the human capability to make certain decisions in life after discovering that greed makes them tick. They are offering million-dollar cash at the expense of another's life. And so far, no one has failed to succumb to the temptation and push the button. He uses humans as his employees, brainwashing them to believe it's just a test. The numerous people experiencing nosebleeds are employees that have regained their consciousness. If people continue to press the button, it might lead to human extinction as the test will fail. Arlington arrives at the other couple's house to give them the payment, while Arthur's NASA friends inform him that Walter will be taken care of as he is escorted away by men in uniforms who put him into a black car before driving off. The film ends with Walter looking down at his dad while Arlington exits the couple's house, starting the test on them. And that's a wrap for this movie recap. Thank you for watching.